13 Roads. Here is a tale I have not yet forgotten. Listen. Tonight it is a man with a chisel in his belt and a wife in the ground. His name was Halen. He was a stonemason in a town with 1 bridge and 3 wells. He walked the bone road for 9 days, and he came back on the 11th, and he was alone when he came back, and he had been alone the whole way. I will tell you what he was promised, and what he believed, and what the road did with the difference. Halen was 31 the spring his wife died. Her name was Mara. She had been a weaver before she married him, and a weaver after, and she sat by the south window of their house because the light there was the kind a weaver can trust, and she made the kind of cloth that is not famous in the city, but is paid for in the country, in coin pressed warm from a man's pocket. She was small. She had a chip in her front tooth from a fall she took at 6 and never had fixed because, she said, it was the only part of her face she could find with her tongue in the dark, and she liked knowing where she was. They had been married 8 years. They had no children. They had wanted them. They had stopped, in the 7th year, talking about it. She died on a Wednesday, in the afternoon, of a thing in her chest that had been a cough for a month, and then was not a cough anymore. The physician came. The physician was honest. The physician said there was a thing growing in her that no one could cut out because it had grown into the place where her breath was made. She lived 4 more days. On the 4th day, she was lucid for an hour in the morning, and she asked Halen for water, and she drank it, and she said his name once, and she said, "Halen, the south window." And he did not know what she meant. And he asked her to say it again, and she could not, because by then the thing in her chest was finished with her. He sat with her body until the next morning. He did not weep. He sat with his hand on her hand, and he tried to remember what she had meant about the south window, and he could not. And the not remembering was the first thing the road would later use against him. He buried her on the Friday. He did not eat for 2 days after the burial. On the 3rd day, he ate a piece of bread standing at the south window of their house, looking at the light she had liked. And he understood that he could not stay in the house with the south window, and the loom, and the chip in her tooth that he could no longer find with his thumb in the dark. He went out into the yard, and he stood with his hands open at his sides for a long time, and he thought about which of the 13 roads a man walks when his wife is dead. There are 13 roads. Most of them you do not choose. Most of them choose you. The bone road is the one a man chooses, because it is the road where the dead are kept, and it is the only road on which a thing taken can be argued for back. It is colder than the others. It has no inns. The wardens of the other roads will not speak its name aloud at their fires. Halen had heard of it the way every man hears of it. He had not believed it was a road a real man walked. He took a wool cloak. He took a wineskin. He took the chisel from his belt and put it in his pack instead of leaving it on the bench, because his hands had held that chisel longer than they had held anything else, and he did not want to walk without it. He did not take food. The man at the gate of the town asked him where he was going, and he did not answer. And the man at the gate looked at his face and stepped aside, because the man at the gate had been a gatekeeper for 20 years, and he knew the look of a man who had chosen the bone road, and he knew you do not stop such a man, and he knew you do not ask twice. Halen walked out of the town on the Sunday morning. The bone road begins where the other roads end. You walk the lesser roads first. You walk them until they thin. The road under your feet gets paler. The trees beside it get fewer. The birds stop. There is a moment, and you do not see it coming, when you understand that you have been walking on the bone road for some time already, and that the road did not announce itself, and that you crossed onto it the way a man crosses into sleep, without a threshold, without a sound. The cold came up through the soles of his boots first, then through his shins, Then it sat in his hips like a thing that had been waiting for him. There were no inns. He had been told there would be none. He had not understood until the first night what that meant. It meant there were no fires that were not his fire. It meant there were no other men. It meant that when he stopped walking, the silence stopped too. Not the way silence stops in a quiet room, but the way a sound stops when the thing making it has been killed. He slept on the road itself because there was no ground beside the road that he trusted. He woke in the dark twice. Both times he heard nothing. Both times the nothing was worse than a sound would have been. He walked for 4 days before he saw what he had come to see. At the end of the bone road, there is a place where the road does not go any further. It is not a gate. It is not a wall. It is a place where the road simply stops, the way a sentence stops with the next word missing. Halen stood at the end of the road for a long time before he understood that the figure he had been looking at was a figure and not a tree and not a stone. It was a man. It was him. It was him as he would be in 40 years. The same face, weathered, the same hands with the same scar on the left thumb where the chisel had slipped when he was 19. The same height, the same set of the shoulders which he had inherited from his father, who had inherited it from his. The older Halen was sitting on a stone at the end of the road. He looked up when Halen came near. He did not seem surprised. He had been waiting, and he had known what he was waiting for, and he had been waiting for a long time. He said, "You have come for her." Halen said, "Yes." The older Halen said, "You may have her. She will walk behind you out of the bone road. You will hear her footsteps. You must not look back. If you hear her stop walking, you must keep walking. Do you understand?" Halen said, "Yes." The older Halen looked at him for a long time. The older Halen said, "I will tell you again. Do you understand?" Halen said, "Yes." The older Halen nodded the way a man nods when he has heard an answer he was hoping not to hear, and he stood up from the stone, and he walked past Halen up the road in the direction Halen had come from. And Halen did not turn to watch him go, because already the rule had begun. He turned, and he walked back the way he had come. He listened. For a long time there was nothing. Then, faint behind him, a footstep. Then another. They were her footsteps. He knew the weight of her step the way a man knows the breath of a wife he has slept beside for 8 years. The steps were tired. The steps were uneven, the way they had been the last month of her life, when the thing in her chest had made her favor her left side. The steps were Mara's. He did not look back. He walked. On the first day, the steps were faint, far behind him, like a sound heard through water. On the second day, they were closer, closer by half. He could hear now the small sound of her cloak against the road. On the third day, he could hear her breathing. On the fourth day, he could hear, between her steps, the small dragging sound of her left foot, the one that had favored her side at the end. He nearly turned then. He nearly turned because he wanted to see her favor that side and know it was her. He did not turn. He walked. On the fifth day, she was so close behind him that he could feel her breath, or thought he could, on the back of his neck. And he wept as he walked, because she was there and he could not look at her, and that was the bargain, and he would keep it. On the sixth day, he heard her say his name. He did not turn. On the seventh day, she said his name again. She said, "Halen, the south window." The same words she had said on the morning she died. He did not understand them then, and he did not understand them now. And he wanted to turn and ask her, and he did not turn, because the older man on the stone had said, "Do not look back." And he had said yes, and he had meant it. On the eighth day she sang, very softly, a song she had sung at her loom. He had heard it 10,000 times. He walked through it. On the 9th day, her steps were so close he could have reached his hand back and touched her wrist. He did not. On the 10th day, the footsteps stopped. He kept walking. He had been told to keep walking. He kept walking for an hour. The road ahead of him was the same pale road. The cold was the same cold. There were no birds. There had not been birds for 10 days. He kept walking. In the 2nd hour, he began to think she had stumbled. She had favored her left side at the end, and the road was uneven, and she had been walking for 10 days, and she was tired. And what kind of man walks on while his wife lies on the road behind him? He told himself the rule. He told himself the rule again. He could not hear her breathing. He could not hear the cloak. He could not hear the dragging of her left foot. There was no sound behind him at all. He walked another hour. In the 4th hour, he understood that if she had collapsed, she might be dying again, on the road, alone, behind him, with no one to put a hand on her hand. And the thought of her dying that way, the 2nd time, the way the 1st time had been, alone in a bed in a house, with him sitting in the next room because the physician had told him to let her rest. The thought of that was the thing he had walked the bone road to undo. He turned. She was not there. The road behind him was empty. It had been empty, he understood, for 10 days. There were no footprints. There was no cloak. There was no small chipped tooth that a man's thumb had once known in the dark. There had never been anyone behind him. He stood on the road for a long time. He was not weeping. The weeping had not started yet. The weeping would start later, when he understood what had happened, and the understanding would take a long time, because the road had told him the rule wrong on purpose, and a man does not understand a rule told wrong until he has walked back to ask. He walked back. The older Helen was on the stone. He looked up. He was not surprised. Helen said, "She stopped walking." I turned because I thought she had fallen. The older Helen said, "She did not stop walking. She was never walking. The footsteps were the roads. The road makes the sound of what you have lost, because the road knows that is the only sound that will keep you walking." Helen said, "You told me not to look back." The older Helen said, "I told you not to look back." The condition was not to look back. The condition was to not believe she was following. A man who does not believe she is following does not turn when the footsteps stop, because a man who does not believe she is following is not listening for the footsteps in the first place. Helen said, "Then she was never going to come." The older Helen said, "She was going to come on the day you walked the whole road without listening. No man has walked it that way. No man will. I know. I am you in 40 years. I have been sitting on this stone for 39 of them." Helen walked back up the bone road alone. It took him 11 days. He did not count. The cold came out of his hips on the 7th day, and out of his shins on the 9th, and out of the soles of his boots on the 11th, and by then he was at the gate of his town, and the gatekeeper looked at him and stepped aside again, because the gatekeeper had seen men come back from the bone road before, and there is a face such men have, and Helen had it. He did not go to the house with the south window. He sold the house. He sold the loom. He kept the chip-toothed comb she had used and the wool cloak he had walked in, and he moved to a town 2 valleys over where no one knew him. And he took up his trade again, because a man with a chisel in his hand can find work in any town with 1 bridge and 3 wells. He remarried 4 years later. Her name was Idra. She was a widow with steady hands. She knew when she married him that he had walked the bone road. She did not ask him about it. She did not ask him about Mara. He was grateful for both. They had a son. The son grew tall. The son took up the chisel. I met Halen in the autumn of his 63rd year. He was sitting on the bench outside his house, with his hands open at his sides, the way a man sits when his hands have done their work for the day and he is letting them rest. His wife was inside. His son had gone to the city. The light was the kind of light a weaver would have trusted. He told me the story himself. I have told it to you the way he told it to me, which is the way a man tells a thing he has told to himself 10,000 times in the dark. At the end of the telling, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Every quiet evening, I still hear footsteps behind me. I know what they are. I know the road is making the sound of what I lost, because the road knew that was the only sound that would keep me walking. And the road is not finished with me. I know all of this." He said, "I still turn." I asked him why. He said, "Because there is a chance, every time, that this is the time she is there." I asked him if he believed there was a chance. He said, "No, I do not believe it. I have not believed it for 30 years. But not believing it is not the same as not turning." He looked at me, and he smiled the smile of a man who has understood a thing late, and he said, "The road told the older me the rule. The older me told the rule to the younger me. Neither of us could keep it. I think the rule was never a thing a man could keep. I think the rule was the road's joke. I think the road wanted me to walk 11 days back through the cold, alone, knowing she had been there for 9 of them, and not there for any of them, so that I would carry the turning with me for the rest of my life. The road did not want her back from me. The road wanted me back from her." He died 2 winters after I sat with him on the bench. His wife wrote to me. She said he had been well that morning. She said he had been sitting at the window. She said he had said, "Idra, the south window." And she had asked him what he meant, and he had not been able to say. And an hour later he was gone. I do not know what he meant. I do not know what Mara meant. I think it was the same thing. I think there is a window in a room neither of them ever stood in together, and the light there is the kind a weaver would trust. And Mara is at her loom, and Helen has come in from the yard, and the chisel is on the bench, and neither of them has walked any road at all. I do not believe this. I have not believed it for a long time. But not believing it is not the same as not turning. I have stood at the end of the Bone Road. I will not tell you how I came to stand there. I will tell you only that the figure on the stone was not me. The figure on the stone is the figure each man finds, and what each man finds is his own to carry. I asked the figure a question. I will not tell you the question. I will tell you that the figure answered, and that the answer was a kindness, and that I have not been the same since. If you walk a quiet evening, and you hear footsteps behind you, and you know there is no one there, and you turn anyway, do not be ashamed. Helen turned. I turn. Every man who has loved a woman the road has taken turns. The road knows this. The road is counting on it. The turning is not the failure. The turning is the love. I am telling you what I saw before I forget. Good night.